You want me to put that on my Tudor?
Harry's wife. Empty and boring. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Harry's wife is empty. I've told you about that so many times, that there's nothing on the inside, an absence of emotional empathy, and that what is presented to the world is a construct generated by her narcissism with the acquisition of learned behaviours, fragments, shards, pieces, aspects, acquired from other people and meshed together by the provision of fuel in order to present it to the outside world, in order to try and control people, draw more fuel, gain character traits and residual benefits. She's also boring. Many narcissists are, because they engage in bloviating behaviours, which is the ability to talk at length in an inflated or empty manner. Now, they don't talk about anything actually at all, loving the sound of their own voice, going on as a way of asserting control over people and drawing a response from them, particularly engaged in where a narcissist managed to get themselves in a position of power or authority or with a hierarchical position, which brings with it the fact that other people have to listen. Harry's wife loves having a platform. She loves being able to stand on a stage and talk at people, sending them into a catatonic state with lashings of industrial beige. She has nothing meaningful to say because she's not particularly bright. She's had numerous experiences, which she repeatedly refers to, but they're not particularly interesting of themselves, mainly because she has no interesting view to offer in relation to that which she's experienced. You'll find that, particularly with lesser and mid-range narcissists, that what they experience when they regurgitate it, it's almost as if it's been put through a wringer, which has taken all of the colour out of it. That they, in a way, suck all of the joy and interest out of things and relay it in a way which is rather banal, rather empty. And that's because of the absence of the relevant, genuine emotions. More evolved narcissists, having more flamboyant language, having a more sophisticated manner of mimicry, are able to convey things in an interesting way, and invariably have had a lot of interesting experiences, and they're able to maintain the essence of that as a consequence of higher executive function, increased intellectual reasoning and capability, and the manner by which their mimicry functions. But lesser and mid-range narcissists often suck the joy out of an experience when they recount it, often done in a way where they go on at length because they're unable to read the room. The fact that their recounting of it essentially strips it of its life and essence, providing you with a beige version. Many have nothing meaningful to talk about, and in other instances, when they do have something which might be of interest to people, they manage to make it dull and make it boring. Harry's wife falls into that category. Here's an individual, if you think about it. She's been involved in the acting world. She got involved in the foodie scene in Toronto. Then she became a member of the royal family. But rather than talk about anything interesting and meaningful about those experiences, we're just treated to boring recollections of victimhood, boring recollections of fashion, boring recollections of food, none of which are interesting, exciting, or meaningful. And therefore, she lets the side down. And it shows whenever she's appeared giving a speech or being interviewed, she really has nothing of interest to tell people. The only times that she perhaps sparks some interest is when she's telling her obvious lies and engaging in the revision of history. And here we have another opportunity to see her bloviating behaviour in action, demonstrating that she's both empty and boring with a video analysis. No doubt those of you who study her with her actions with a keen eye will be able to tell you what this appertains to. I think it's a few years old. But Harry's wife has been interviewed, and then it's time for some questions to be taken, as is often the case when somebody has appeared after giving an interview. Harry's wife, full of herself, believing the entire audience is hanging on her every word, gets ready to talk, but things don't quite pan out as she wishes. And there are two fundamental aspects that come from this that I'll be discussing once I've allowed you to see the clip. Here it comes.
So we're going to take a few questions from the audience. Who has a question?
They have no questions. They just want their cocktails.
I think you dropped all the knowledge. Anyone?
I'm a chatty gal.
One question,
I know.
guys.
Not even a question about
Ari
Mike
has
Ross.
one.
That surprises me. I got to tell you, there's nowhere I can go without people going, oh, no,
Boom.
please tell me it's not a Mike Ross
All right,
question.
we're going to get you a mic. We're going to run it over. If you could stand up, awesome. Hi. We're going to have to get more drinks in you guys. Loosen you up. Just kidding.
I swear, 4 people asked me, do you want some champagne? Do you want some champagne? Meghan, do you want some champagne? I was like, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. No, I'm good.
Success.
And then it just appears. I was like, oh my God.
I would have gotten you the wine. It would have been so appropriate.
Bubbles are always a win. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Alia.
Hi.
Today I've kind of just noticed we've talked a lot about
Can you
motivation.
bring it closer?
Sorry.
I said today I've noticed that we've talked a lot about motivation and kind of following your gut. Meghan, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the very conservative part of business that's still very much alive and how you manage feminism and being feminine.
Oh, this one is so interesting. That's a great question. Thank you. And it's not about Mike Ross. I just think they are not mutually exclusive. For those of you who didn't hear, she was asking about how you balance being a feminist and being feminine. And I had written an article for the Irish Independent, which is a big newspaper in Ireland, about that exact thing, because I've been really fortunate enough to just meet with a lot of really powerful and incredible women. I was speaking at One Young World in Ottawa a couple weeks ago, and I was there with Mary Robinson, who was the former president of Ireland. And my favorite is these moments, between her, and I'd seen Angela Merkel as well before, and before these events, either at the UN or whatever else, and you see these powerhouse women going where's my compact? I need to put on my lipstick. Is my lipstick okay? And it's one of those things where it's yes, because of course, you can still be a woman who wants to look beautiful and present well, and it doesn't lessen the fact that you are standing up for something that is incredibly important and about the equality of the sexes or whatever else you have.
Okay, there is the clip. You'll have formed some of your conclusions in relation to it. Now, the first thing, of course, is the fact that there is a reluctance or a paucity of people wanting to ask questions. So when the interviewer says, we'll take a few questions, there's nobody forthcoming. This, of course, is a problem for a narcissist and automatically wounds the fact that nobody has any questions for the great Harry's wife, she of the most interesting things in the universe that she has to tell us, wounds her. The audience are likely tertiary sources. She doesn't know them. Their failure to ask a question means that all of those tertiary sources have now wounded her. We don't know how many people in the audience. I don't think it'd be a huge audience, judging by the general sounds that we heard, and let us assume that there's 50 people there. 50 tertiary sources. It amounts up to fairly significant wounding, not individually but collectively, because they've all failed to ask her a question. And therefore, that threatens her sense of control. And we see it because Harry's wife immediately jumps in by stating, they have no questions, they just want their cocktails. She tries to make a joke of it, but actually she's being dismissive. And one can see that there is an anxious look from her as a consequence of her narcissism making her feel anxious, as a consequence of the threat to control that she is subconsciously experiencing. Her narcissism needs to make her feel anxious so that she reacts by making a comment, they have no questions, they just want their cocktails, in an attempt to assert control over the audience. She then says, I'm a chatty gal, I know. Quite why she says this. It almost seems like there's a glitch there, as a consequence of not really knowing what to say. The presenter and her talk across one another. Notice how Harry's wife does that, an absence of boundary recognition. And she makes mention, I think, of Mike Ross, and then starts to say, there's nowhere I can go without people going, oh. Then somebody obviously rises or puts their hand up to show that they want to ask a question. Thus, the anecdote that Harry's wife was banging on about is brought to a conclusion. Immediately, however, she states, please tell me it's not a Mike Ross question. This, of course, from anybody else might be seen as a joke, but from Harry's wife, she's actually exhibiting her envy. She gets fed up of being asked about Mike Ross, because she wants to be asked about her. And a question about Mike Ross wounds her, is challenge fuel. The reason being, although it's directed at her, thus she's being given fuel, it's being asked in relation to somebody else and not about her, and thus it's a challenge to her. The presenter comments that we're about to get more drinks in, guys, to loosen you up. Just kidding. And then Harry's wife starts off with, I swear 4 people asked me, do you want champagne? And I said, I'm no good. No, I'm good. And then it just appears. Fascinating insight there from Harry's wife. Of course, that is demonstrative of a grandiosity. I'm really important, so people keep asking me if I want champagne. Wow. Really interesting. Finally, eventually, somebody does get round to asking a question about 50 seconds in. So, pausing there, Harry's wife has been wounded by the failure of the audience to ask her a question. Her response to that is to basically talk nonsense. Show her envy of Mike Ross, be self-indulgent talking about the champagne, and then coming out with a non sequitur of, I'm a chatty gal, I know. Then the questioner asks this question. Today we talked a lot about motivation following your gut. Was wondering if you could speak to the very conservative part of business that's very much alive and how you manage feminism and being feminine. At that juncture, you can hear the grinding of gears in Harry's wife's empty mind. Oh, she begins, this is so interesting. That's a great question, thank you. And it's not about Mike. Once again, her preoccupation and envy of Mike Ross manifests in her answer. I just think they're not mutually exclusive. For those that did not hear, and then she goes and repeats the question, I've written an article, all about me, for the Irish Independent, which is a big newspaper in Ireland. No shit, Sherlock. Thanks for stating the obvious. About that exact thing, because I've been really fortunate to meet with a lot of powerful and incredible women. I was speaking at One World Ottawa, get that in there again, a bit like her dishwashing story. I was speaking at One World Ottawa a couple of weeks ago, and then I was there with Mary Robinson, who was the former President of Ireland. Yeah, but what's all of this got to do with the balance between feminism and being feminine, Harry's wife? You're just talking about what you've been doing. And my favourite in these moments, like between her and the Angela Merkel, now she's just waffling. Before these events at the or other places where you see these powerhouse women, where's my compact? I need to put on my lipstick. And it's one of those things because, of course, you can still be a woman who looks beautiful, and it doesn't lessen the fact that you're standing up for something incredibly important and the equality of the sexes. The clip then fades out. Presumably the cameraman took his own life. That answer is boring, it's empty, it's beige, and it's banal. It's word salad. It's meaningless. It doesn't provide any perceptive insight with regard to balancing feminism and being feminine. And it's demonstrative of the fact that Harry's wife isn't that bright. She has nothing of interest to say. And therefore, all she can fall back on is, oh, I once gave a speech, and I once wrote an article, and I once met Mary Robinson, and I saw Angela Merkel behind the curtains once, and they needed to put on their makeup. So just because you want to put your makeup on doesn't mean you can't be a feminist. Wow, what fascinating fucking insight that is. Sums up Harry's wife very neatly. This video analysis not only is demonstrative of her narcissism in action in terms of being wounded by the lack of questioner and the flannel that she then comes out with, but we're treated to the exhibition of her lack of intelligence, her emptiness, and the fact that what she provides demonstrates that she is both empty and boring. Of course, what she's managed to do is get herself in a position whereby people actually, although she doesn't realise this, are using her as much as that she uses them. That because that she had a position as an actress, that she had some roles with the UN and One World Vision, and then latterly as the Duchess of Sussex, it's the only reason why people have had anything to do with her, not because she has any inherent talent, not because she has anything interesting to tell us, not because she's a fantastic speaker. She thinks she is. But as a consequence of sharpened elbows and getting herself in there, and no doubt making the lives miserable of agents and PR people, they've had to come up with some opportunities for her. And therefore those organisations have thought, right, this is who we've got, we'll make the best of her. And therefore they're treated to a mundane speech, which invariably they're too polite to criticise and have to make it sound like she's got something really interesting to say. Some of these individuals, of course, they're just there to take the pay and they don't really care about what's being said. Others are pretty empty themselves and they switch off and aren't listening. But many people will be thinking to themselves, that was a waste of time, that was a waste of money. She had nothing interesting to say whatsoever. And that's why you don't see her getting repeat gigs, because people realise there's really nothing there. There's nothing meaningful that she has to offer. She is both empty and boring, demonstrating the mid-range narcissist that she is. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.